I've described us in a couple ways. One, I think we're like a fun uncle. We're the funkle because like we have matured a little bit, but like we can still like, if you need to get down and dirty and have some fun, like you can do that here. And then I also think we have redefined what a Florida man is. I think that you have an idea of what the Florida man is, and the accounts online are pretty representative and pretty hysterical as somebody that grew up in the country, in the rural areas. But this is an elevated, refined Florida man that exists here. There's a little culture, and that's a different Florida vibe. I think we're this little pocket. We're a peninsula on a peninsula, and we really are. There's like, I don't want to say an outcast, but we're kind of out there on our own, and just this little package of surprise and niceness and fun.
Wake and Wander, Episode 6. My guest today is Jason Latimer. This episode was recorded in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was originally supposed to visit last fall. However, Hurricane Helene hit in late September and derailed my trip. A few weeks ago, I finally had the chance to visit, and I was on assignment to cover the opening of the new Moxie Hotel in downtown St. Pete. Some people say the opening of this hotel signals a new era in St. Pete, both in terms of its downtown revitalization and its tourism industry. While I was there, I met Jason for a drink to find out more about St. Pete. And although I'm usually hesitant about having PR people on a podcast, which you'll see, we discuss, he gained my trust, and he has a really interesting background in baseball and travel. He'll give us a rundown of why locals are really excited about their town right now, and why it might be the perfect time to visit. This podcast will be talking travel, talking to guests from all over the world. Here's episode 6. So we're here in the Moxie Hotel in their podcast studio. I never really realized it was a thing that hotels had podcast studios. Now I'm finding out it is. In fact, this morning I jumped online and I found an article from 2019. The headline was, "The hot new hotel amenity is a podcast studio." And apparently they were talking about how podcast studios are going to become just as prevalent as a lobby bar. I don't know if I believe that. This is a beautiful studio. I mean, we're in this little tiny room. They got some mics. We're using our own setup. They have couches and chairs. There is a skee ball game right outside the door, as well as a coffee machine and grinder. So if we have some background noise, that's why. But have you ever seen in all your travels a podcast studio in another hotel?
This was the first one that I saw. But 2019, that's pretty prescient to be that far ahead. I mean,
I was shocked.
The podcast came along after, COVID. That was really when everything started to come about with that. So
according to this article, podcasts were starting to pick up steam in 2016, 2017, 2018, which I agree with you. I always assumed that it was after the pandemic, independent media the past couple years rising. Apparently, according to the hotel chain. I don't know anybody who was recording a podcast in 2018 at a hotel.
This is a great one, though. It's a good room, and it's a great addition. I think it fits. It's on trend with kind of maybe who they're having hang out here a lot. If there are podcasters or influencers, this is probably the hotel that you would find them at around here.
If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would ever be recording a podcast in the Moxie Hotel, I would have said absolutely not.
No shot.
But hey, that's the fun part of life, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to get out and see more of the destination too, right? You got to go hang out in the city, and but you find time to come in, and you got to make your money and record your podcast.
Hey, working's tough,
that's
right?
Work. You got to make $1.
Well, this is one of the newest hotels in St. Pete, and I want to talk about that because I feel it's sort of signaling a new era here in St. Pete. And there's definitely something happening here in this town, even walking around this weekend, seeing all the new buildings going up, a lot of new residents coming in, reports of growth, new press coverage you guys are get. So we can get into all that. I just want to say you are the head up of the PR and marketing team for the tourism board here.
Just PR. I can't take credit for all the marketing. That's just
okay.
PR. We'll just stick.
We
with
won't
PR
go
lane.
a deep dive into the difference between PR and marketing, but I'm usually very hesitant to have PR people on my program or even interview them for articles because I find that PR professionals have a hard time letting their hair down, and they have a hard time getting away from their talking points.
It's true.
But after meeting you the other night, I feel like we can just have an honest conversation about the destination, and I was really fascinated by your backstory, so I'd love to talk about that to start. Before you got into travel PR, you actually worked for Major League Baseball and did PR for the Tampa Bay Rays, the New York Yankees, and the Miami Marlins. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that time in your life. Seems
Yeah.
very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, you make it seem like it was like a 5-minute stop. I mean, it was a 18-year first part of the career, I guess you could say, doing PR and for Major League Baseball teams. Yeah, actually, so we're sitting in the Moxie, and we are on the backside. So First Avenue south of St. Pete is directly behind us, and then on the other side of that street is Tropicana Field, and that's where I started as an intern back in 2003. At that point they were the Tampa Bay Devil Rays still. They had not yet changed and dropped the Devil. Was there for about 5 seasons.
What were you doing for them? Just coordinating public relations?
Whatever the lowest on the totem pole can possibly be. I don't remember getting coffee.
Like
I'm
beer
sure.
vendor or what?
I'm sure I brought coffee to people. I can't specifically remember. But I was usually the first one in. Back in the day, you'd have to do clips. So this is like 2003. You go back in time. I'm not even sure I had a cell phone at that point. I think I had a BlackBerry was my first corporate phone. Anyway, you used to have to come in early and actually clip the newspapers.
You'd cut out the article?
You'd cut out the article and make a Xerox copy, and then when your boss came in the morning, you would have the copies on their desks of the clips.
How many newspapers were you getting delivered?
Oh, it was just a few. I mean, we're a smaller market, so this is a much smaller market. When I get to New York market, then we can talk about having to stop at the bodega and get 10 newspapers and bring them in every day, and with the interns clip those out. But anyway, then we advanced to internet, and we actually would pull stuff off of the internet. I think it was year 2. Great experience. Yeah, I got to be in the clubhouse, meet a lot of great people. I know we were talking, my first manager was Lou Piniella, he's a Tampa icon. Not an easy manager
known in
to
Cincinnati
play for.
Yeah.
Right, not an easy manager to play for. Equally as difficult to work with sometimes, but great human being and baseball lifer. That was a good first start.
Is it hard for you now seeing the Trop? I just saw the roof got ripped off, right?
Yeah, the one of the recent hurricanes came through. It was very high winds, and that was unfortunately, I think that was the image that everybody saw, which is a very jolting image to see the skeleton of a stadium that's not supposed to be like that. So it was, as a PR person, that was something to have to deal with very quickly and get out and make sure people knew that was not representative of the entire destination. That was a roof that had been on for 30 years, and I think it only had a lifespan of 25 years, so it had kind of outlived what it was supposed to, and they're in the process of trying to figure out what their next home is going to be situation-wise with the stadium. But that was, as somebody that worked in there, a very weird thing to see, and it's still weird to see.
I was walking past it with a friend yesterday, and she said pretty much the same thing, and it's so bizarre to me because there's so many people that think baseball is boring. However, most people have such a childhood connection to the game. And my friend she's a casual fan, but walking by, we were looking at the roof, and she said, it's just so sad. I have so many memories as a kid of coming to the stadium and to now see it destroyed. There's something about a ballpark downtown and in an area that even if you're not following the team, it's just such an iconic, the Coliseum of our times.
Yeah. So I was actually a season ticket holder the first year. When they started in '98, my dad and I bought season tickets. They were $5 a game. It was 3 rows from the top. It was partially obstructed because the catwalks were so low that you couldn't see beyond the shortstop. It was up off of the first base side. But I grew up for most of my formative years without a home team. So I grew up a Cubs fan because I would get to come home every day from school and watch the 2:20 game on WGN. So I grew up, Sandberg and Grace and Dunston and Sosa and on and on and on. That was my team growing up. My son, who's 14, his middle name is Ryan, for Ryan Sandberg. Like, that's my core, and that's who I was growing up. So then to get a team in your hometown was like, that's another level to then be a fan of your hometown team. I don't know. There's something special about that.
When you first got that job, I remember being a kid coming up through getting my interest in journalism, and I always thought covering sports would be such a dream job, right? You're a kid and you just can't imagine anything greater than being in the world of sports. Did all your friends think you had nailed the dream job when you got that?
Yeah, I think so, until they go on vacation in the summer and they're like, hey, let's go away for a week. And you're like, can't do that. Sorry. I'll see you in November or December and we can go away then.
No days off for 6 months, essentially.
You get, I think it's like 22 actual off days, which is for the team off, but it's usually a Monday or a Thursday. So for those of us with jobs,
you're catching up on
You're
things.
still working on Mondays and Thursdays.
And that's when players are out causing trouble. Then you got to clean up.
As a PR guy, nobody's causing trouble. They're all very good, studious employees of the team, yes.
Did you travel with the team?
I did.
So you must have traveled a ton.
I did. When I started with the Rays, I didn't. So then after the Rays, I went to the Yankees. I worked with the Yankees for 8 seasons. And then I was with the Marlins for 6 years after that. Then I traveled more with those teams.
That's got to be one of the jobs with the most travel in the entire country.
Yeah.
Just every week you're in a new city, back and forth with the team. Tell us what that lifestyle was like. Were you traveling with the players? Do they put you on a bus? Or are you on a private plane? How does that work?
Yeah, you're on a private plane. I'm trying to think when I first started. It gets better over time as the collective bargaining agreement gets redone every year. The players get more amenities as it goes. But yeah, it's a private plane. At some point, it changed where Delta is a big primary sponsor for all the teams. Not all the teams, most of the teams. And they have what's called a first-class plane. So all of the seats on the plane are first-class seats.
That's nice.
Yeah, so you kind of get space, but you are, for the most part, crammed in. It's 60-something people in a traveling party for a baseball team.
Don't tell us about being cramped. Modern-day air travel is the worst. Seats have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If you had a first-class seat everywhere in the plane, we don't feel bad for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that's fair. I retract. No, that's fair.
Plus, you're sitting next to Derek Jeter. So.
Well, that's the team has their area, and then the staff is in their areas. Usually the PR person. We're not the last row, but we're usually like second or third to the last row on the plane.
But is that a good time to catch up with players, to talk to them because they're a captive audience?
No, because it's, you're eating some food. Some guys are probably playing cards. Some guys are sleeping.
Are there rules against that? Hey, the players need their own time at this point, and don't bother them.
No, I think it's always when you're in that role, I think you just always have to use your best judgment, whether you're on the plane, in a car with them, and if you're going to the clubhouse. It's just best judgment. Some guys like it, some guys don't. Some guys will walk to the back of the plane and talk to you, and whatever. You have relationships with guys that'll do that. Some guys don't.
When you arrived in the city, did you get a chance to explore usually? Did you find that part of your job exciting, going to different cities with the team?
Yes, that's a benefit that I have not taken for granted. In San Diego, there's I don't even know the name. It's tough to throw this out. There's a place you can go and hike up and watch the sunrise. A friend of mine and I did that one morning. We woke up at, I think it was 4:30 a.m. because we were staying in the Gaslamp district, and it was like a 30 or 40-minute ride out. So we got an Uber and took this ride out. It's pitch black, and we wanted to climb to the top of the mountain, so we got our phones out with our flashlights, climbing to the top of this mountain. You got almost to the top, and then the sun starts to break, so you got to watch sunrise. Then you come back down the mountain, and you realize you're literally in the middle of nowhere, and you have to get an Uber back to the city somehow in order to get back to get ready for the game that night.
It's one thing to get dropped off.
Yeah.
It's another to get picked up with the Uber.
So the half-hour wait for the Uber and then have a half-hour drive was stress-inducing.
Did you have a travel style where you tried to pencil that in every time to do a unique activity with the city, or was it just chaotic and more of whenever you could?
No, I'm very regiment-oriented. So, I want to wake up, I want to work and get some stuff done so I feel good about my day, and then take, an hour or two to explore a little bit. Or I would work until lunchtime, per se, and then go out and make sure I hit a certain restaurant. I would do some research beforehand. Whenever I travel anywhere, still to this day, I want to know where I want to eat. If there are a couple things that I can fit in that only take an hour or so to see.
Would you be able to eat at night because you're eating at the ballpark, I'm guessing?
Yeah, most games start late. With the new pitch clock rules, the games are getting done much sooner, which is, thank you, Commissioner Manfred, for implementing that and helping us peons in the workforce.
I have mixed feelings about it. We could do a whole podcast on that. This podcast is not about baseball, so I'm not going to take the bait there. But
yeah, then if you wanted to go out late, you could get a late night snack somewhere. When you played the Cubs, which is always great, they can only have so many night games. The peak trip is you got an off day on a Thursday in Chicago, a 1:20 game on Friday, a 120 game on Saturday, and a 120 game on Sunday. Because then you're guaranteed 3 meals in a great dining destination.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's like afternoon chill game. You're not up late.
Right. You still got enough time. Yeah.
How is it transferring from the Tampa Bay market, which is a smaller sports market, up to New York City, the king of media?
Yeah. It's the same. Like, and I truly mean that. And I tell people that, like, when you're doing your job, you're still looking at it the same. I mean, even today, like, I'm a PR person. I'm advocating for how great our beaches are. I'm advocating for how great the Yankees are. I'm advocating for how great the Marlins are, the Rays are. You find these stories and you want to tell these stories and help relate to the fans. And the principles of the job are the same. It's just a matter of how you're executing and what tools are in your toolbox.
I feel like a lot of people think of PR people as almost like lawyers, where they serve a purpose, but not necessarily someone you trust or something like this, because you never know where their motivations are. How do you see the industry as a whole like that?
Yeah, I would kind of agree, right? I actually don't like the term public relations. I prefer the term communications. I think there's a different connotation there. I think there's a different reaction when people hear public relations. I'm not sure that shows like Mad Men with the advertising agency did a lot to help. There's been other shows with PR. I think it was, now I can't remember the name of it. It was only on for a couple seasons, but it was like celebrity PR, and she was like covering up for the celebrities doing all kinds of things they shouldn't have been doing. But I think that's where everybody feels like the glitz and the glamour and the nonstop lifestyle gets you in trouble as a PR representative.
Yeah, you think of PR as covering things up or spin.
Yeah, but it's storytelling.
St. Pete has the best beaches in the world.
Right.
It's like, okay.
And they can say that, and I can say that all I want, right?
Right.
And that's why having somebody like you come to town and be like, oh, wow, this is great. This actually is a cool area to hang out. That creates a good base. And then from there, I've got to find the stories that I can tell. And I think a lot of that is personality driven, where you can find situations of be it a chef or be it a local shop owner, a restaurateur, a hotel manager that can really give you that behind the scenes detail. I can't provide a lot of that myself, but if I can create the relationships with people to then help tell those stories, that's only going to be beneficial, and that's something that we really want to try to do here. I've only been here for about 16 months, I think, still trying to discover all that because the place is growing so rapidly. Having to keep up and keep track is actually difficult.
I like what you said there. You're more of a connector. And I think a lot of PR professionals could learn from that, because sometimes they try and drive this narrative that they've come up with rather than just saying, hey, you know what? Here's this cool person. Go meet them. Let them tell you the story. They've been here forever. They've done this forever. I feel that in travel writing too. A lot of travel writers have this idea of when they go somewhere that they have to judge based on what they think of the experience. So, for example, the Moxie Hotel. Party hotel, known to be a place of entertainment, place of gathering. The Sparrow restaurant here, went there the other night, could barely hear my friend. The music was so loud. By the end of it, we're sitting shoulder to shoulder just so we can hear each other. Not my vibe, right? Not somewhere I would necessarily go, but wanted to check it out as a writer and a new place in town. However, my job as a travel writer is not to just always give my opinion. I'm not going to now go write a story and be like, yeah, I didn't like it because the music was too loud, this or that. My job is to go experience it and say, okay, who would like this? Mm-hmm. And why would they like it? Right. And what type of person would come here? And then my story can be based around that. Okay, what type of publications do those people read? And then I go, because I get that asked a lot. People who know me, if I told them, oh, I stayed at the Moxie, they'd be like, what? Why would you do that? You're going to write about that? Oh, you're such a fake journalist. It's like, dude, it's not, I don't have to agree with everything. I don't have to love everything I do. I just need to portray it to the correct audience. I'm not telling my Colorado hiking buddies to go stay at the Moxie. I'm telling this story to a different crowd, right?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, 100%. I think, that's a sign of, I don't know if maturity is the right word, but going above and beyond, right? I think that just like any other industry, we can all do our jobs and check a box. If you want to be really good and be proud of what you do, maybe you find that different angle or you find that different direction and you take it to that next level. I would hope that everybody would want to achieve that all the time, but truth be told, that doesn't exist. And like I said, I think that goes for any industry. Like I said, I have a 14-year-old son. I tell him every day, like, you can wake up and be a B student. That's fine. You're going to get through life absolutely fine with a B student. I don't know if that's going to fulfill you. It doesn't fulfill me. I'm driven to be A plus. I want to always be the best, and I want us to stand out no matter what I do. It could be putting my shirt on in the morning. I want to do that the best. So how can we all achieve that in our daily lives?
So it's important for you in your career to really align with the stories you're telling and to find those yourself?
Yeah, because I want to find unique stories, right? I mean, I don't think it would do us any good if we had 100 writers come and all write the same story. I don't think that's going to advance our brand. I think if you want to grow your brand, you really, especially in the media nowadays, it's so niche. Everything is so bifurcated as much as possible. Like, how do we get into all of those niches as much as possible? And that takes a lot of digging, and that takes a lot of effort to find the certain publication that appeals to, maybe these 20 or 30,000 people. Okay, well, that's 20 or 30,000 people that may want to come hang out here for the weekend and spend their hard-earned money having a good time and helping our industry here locally and, feed these business owners.
Before we get into St. Pete and talking about that, you mentioned something in passing the other night. You took me to that great speakeasy, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. I'm definitely going to write about that. Yeah. That was so cool how you just walked through that liquor store.
Yeah.
I was like, where's this guy taking me? You're like, I want to show you something. That was so cool. So stay tuned for that. But you told me a story in passing that when you were working for the Yankees, you met your wife, and sorry to get personal, but I just thought it was a cool story related to your job, and I'm wondering if you could share that.
Yeah, it's one of those like meet cutes. I have a wonderful wife who's very supportive, and
she would have to be for your traveling baseball career.
Yeah, and for now too. Yeah, it's yes. She's very tolerant, tolerable of my antics in life. So I was doing PR for the Yankees. She was doing PR for the Empire State Building. So for those that don't know, just about every night they have a special lighting of the Empire State Building. Sometimes it's in different colors, and she would help organize those efforts. So when a celebrity came and wanted to light the building, it used to be a little bit bigger back in the day. I think maybe it's kind of faded out nowadays. She would help organize that. So had brought players there, and they were lighting the building. We went up to take some photos, and we literally met at the top of the Empire State Building. So similar to one of those, I don't know what were rom-com, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, they did that, I think, but very, very similar story to that. So, and all these years later, here we are.
It's probably one of the best meeting stories I've ever heard.
Meanwhile,
Derek Jeter's like elbowing Alex Rodriguez, be like, "Hey man, look at Jason. He's really macking it over there."
Oh no, I'm sure there was other comments made other than that.
How was it? So coming back to say you had a childhood here.
Yeah.
You're in New York, working in the Big Apple. Then you go to Miami, right?
Yeah.
You're working for the Marlins. Then you decide to come back to St. Pete. Why did you decide to get into tourism after baseball?
Yeah, and just to clarify, so I did have some pit stops in between. I actually left baseball for a little bit and did college football for a couple seasons up at UF and worked on the staff doing recruiting communications there. And then I actually did government here. I got into elections, 2016 general elections. I was doing communications for the elections office here. That was super interesting. Great people there as well. And then got back into baseball and went down to Miami. And then, I hit a time where I thought it was kind of right to move along. There was decisions being made and directions that I wasn't totally in agreement with. And like I said, I've got a son now who's 14. So I wanted to spend some time with him before he went to college. And that lifestyle takes you away a lot and doesn't allow you to have great summer vacations and spend a lot of time, on Saturdays or Sundays going to baseball or football games. So decided to make the change and come back here, and this job was open, and I applied and was very fortunate enough to get it. And luckily I had been back here so much, I had kind of seen the development. When I started as an intern in 2003, you didn't really walk down Central Avenue very much. We did not spend a lot of time. There was maybe 2 or 3 bars, 2 or 3 restaurants that existed that you would actually want to go to. So to see it now into this place that it's the street to walk down, and you can walk basically 32 blocks all the way down to the water.
I can't tell you how many people I've met this weekend who have told me a similar version of that story. And not like grandpas, like, oh, when I was young, people in their 20s and 30s telling me how they would never come to these areas previously, and now it's just so impressive to see how it's all developed.
And that's a credit to the local leadership over the years, over the last couple decades that had that vision, that have seen that vision, and a double credit because there's no chains. You go the entire way, there's not a chain down here.
I did notice that.
It's
no
locals,
McDonald's.
It is local restaurants. It's local business owners. It's a lot of people that are from here, that grew up here. There's a couple people that I know that, their parents may have had a place a couple blocks away, and they've always seen the street, and they wanted to have a business, and they opened their business here. And like, that's the type of community that has evolved here. And like I said, they do an incredible job here, just from the local city government to the chamber of developing that and fostering that and taking pride in it. There's another thing I can't remember if we got into it or not, but mural scene is very big here. There's 500 murals within the city of St. Petersburg. Buildings are building now and leaving space blank so that they can be a part of that theme to this community and part of that fabric. And to me, that's super interesting to see that.
It really makes it unique. I grew up in Philly, which is the queen city of murals as far as I'm concerned. And it's just so cool how every block you're just seeing bursts of color, different artistic representations.
And I can't say it's my favorite because I can't choose out of my children, but one of the ones that I think is the best is actually right across the street from the Moxie Hotel. If you walk out, and there's a little empty lot there that I'm sure will be developed at some point, but it says Sunshine City, which is the nickname for St. Pete because of all the sunshine that we get. And it's like a chrome look, and it's an artist named Dave Bonsai, who's actually from London, who came over and painted. He did 2 or 3 murals during his time here. Like, worldwide graffiti artists are coming in and actually creating these beautiful additions to the city and kind of putting their stamp on it, but still fits within the theme is I don't know, there's something enriching about that.
How long did you live in Miami?
6 years.
How would you describe the difference between Miami and St. Pete?
So I actually proactively will say that we are Miami Light a lot here.
Miami Lights.
Yeah. There's a much different vibe and feel depending on what you're going to go to Miami for. We were just talking about the murals all over. There's Wynwood in Miami, which is super hip and trendy. This is a little more scattered out. It's it's here, it's there. You can see it. You don't have to be amongst the DJs and loud vibes and musics. It's just a more chill vibe that exists here. You can wear flip-flops and a t-shirt and get into just about every establishment just fine. But you still have the same art and culture. We were just added to the Michelin Guide Florida, so that was something that we're super proud of. They added 3 new destinations this year, and we were one of them. That they came to us and said, hey, we really like what's going on there. We want you guys to be a part of that. So that kind of puts us into that same category. You feel like you're a big dog, right? Because you got Miami and Orlando and Tampa are in that. And now, you kind of elevate your status a little bit. But you're on the water. You got rooftops. There's an underground music scene that exists here. I wouldn't say it's a music scene per se, but there's definitely an underground music scene with some great venues to take in a show. I feel like you've got all the qualities that you would find in one of these big cities, but it's shrunk way down, and it comes in at like this vibe where you're just like hanging out, and you can just be, you don't have to dress up and be fancy.
What you're saying resonates with me. I was joking with my friend. We were going out to dinner. I'm classically an underdresser, and I made some joke about, oh yeah, I'm dressing up tonight, and they say, oh wait, really? Like, I'm on my way. It's St. Pete. I didn't know we needed to wear something nice. Right. And I was like, oh, I'm kidding. But in Miami, it's very seen and be seen. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a lot more focus on money, a lot more who's got the coolest outfit on, who's the slickest. People talk about money a lot. People here just seem more like beach bums.
But
not dirty beach bums.
No, but but I think it's like elevated, right? It's like I've joked. I've said this to a few people. Like, I've described us in a couple ways. One, I think we're like a fun uncle. We're the funkle because like we have matured a little bit, but like we can still like if you need to get down and dirty and have some fun, like you can do that here. And then I also think we have redefined what a Florida man is. I think that you have an idea of what the Florida man is, and the accounts online are pretty representative and pretty hysterical as somebody that grew up in the country, in the rural areas. But this is an elevated, refined Florida man that exists here. There's a lot of people that are from the area here, but they do like to go to a museum like the Dali Museum or have a great meal at Il Ritorno down the street. There's a little culture, and that's a different Florida vibe. I think we're this little pocket. We're a peninsula on a peninsula, and we really are. There's like, I don't want to say an outcast, but we're kind of out there on our own and just this little package of surprise and niceness and fun.
I don't think people realize, and really I didn't before I started exploring the area, St. Pete's a little overshadowed, or I think people get confused with the relationship with Tampa. And then locally I've noticed I say Tampa Bay, and people think I'm talking about the water, not the city of which from a sports. Oh, Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay, Rays. So I always say Tampa Bay, and they think I'm talking about the body of water, not the city. So can you describe to people the geography a little bit here and how Tampa Bay is or is not part of St. Pete and how it's different?
Sure. Yeah. So technicality, Tampa Bay is a body of water. That's all that it is. But the region is also the Tampa Bay region. And, I think that's where you get your sports teams. They call themselves the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Rays, the Bucks. Everybody is of Tampa Bay. Pinellas County, which is St. Pete-Clearwater, and Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, are right next to each other, separated by this body of water. And, we are our own area. They are their own area. But it's difficult. That's a difficult branding thing for us, just to be quite frank. And we do have a lot of conversations about that because Tampa's got this incredible scene downtown in Ybor City, and they've got the airport. It's Tampa International Airport. It is not Tampa Bay International Airport. So people say, I'm going to Tampa. And you go, oh, great. Where are you going to stay? Oh, I'm staying out on Clearwater Beach. Okay, so then you're not going to Tampa. You're flying into Tampa, but you're staying out on Clearwater Beach. So there's definitely a difference there, but to us, it's we work very well with our partners across the bay. They're great. I think we both have attributes that complement each other.
I always thought that St. Pete was a neighborhood of Tampa Bay, or not Tampa Bay.
So that's interesting.
Tampa.
Yeah, no, it's a city. It's a sister city.
It's its own
and
thing.
It's probably like, listen, you got Minneapolis and St. Paul, but I think you'd probably be hard pressed to find another dual destination like this in the United States, where you've got two cities that are that close to each other, that have their own identities, that are not suburbs of each other.
Walking around St. Pete this weekend, I saw some minor damage left over from Hurricane Helene. What was your experience? Do you remember? Of course you remember, but were you here for it? Did you evacuate? Tell us about your experience during the hurricane.
Yeah, so we're actually
November?
October.
October.
Yeah, last week of September was the first one, and then the second one was the first week of October, first or second week. We are a county department, so we have emergency responsibilities. So I actually spent both hurricanes in the Emergency Operations Center because we are on staff to help out with anything that's needed. So we have various roles. We've got about 50 people in our office, and some folks are helping out in shelters. Some are doing information call center. So most of the staff was on call or operating during the hurricane in some facet, trying to help out the residents to execute on our responsibility
of telling them whether or not they should evacuate and things like that.
Well, helping them out if people have questions about. Yes, you're helping get the message out, but folks may have calls or concerns, and that's therefore if they have to evacuate and go to a shelter, our staff is assisting other county staff. We're a big county, but there are roles and responsibilities that exist.
So for you, having a background in South Florida, maybe a hurricane is this considered South Florida?
This is Central Florida.
Central, okay.
Yeah.
Because I guess south, way more Miami. Again, looking at the map, I almost think it's like just across, but it's really farther north.
Yeah. I think you need to get down to like Fort Myers, like
that's more south.
Maybe that's like South Florida. Yeah.
Well, so you growing up here, you're used to hurricanes, but for someone like me, it's more of like Wait, you were here during the hurricane? Like, I'm curious about your experience. Were you in the heart of the storm here?
No,
Was
but that's
debris flying by? Like,
that's an interesting perspective, right? Because you say that I'm 43 years old. I haven't really lived through that many hurricanes because they don't come around this vicinity very often.
Oh, really?
That was the first time in 100 years that a hurricane had come anywhere that close to Tampa Bay.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was every year you would get storms.
No. That is a very rare occurrence that happened.
So where do they usually come? Further south or further north?
It depends. Yeah, I mean, they hook up and go into the Panhandle, or they come across the south of the United States, or they'll hook back up in, the Fort Myers area. They got hit pretty hard a few years ago, but to come into this region is very rare.
So how did people react when did people believe it was going to hit? Because that can be a problem, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the first one that came through was Helene was way off the coast, and it provided a little bit of storm surge, and I think that's a lot of people saw a lot of damage from the storm surge. That was what water does most of the damage. So when Milton came through, people luckily took that much more seriously. So a lot better evacuating and preparing for that hurricane. But I think that if you, like you said, you notice some things here and there, but for the most part, kudos again to all the leaders and the community here who bounced back and knew how important it was to bounce back quickly. And anecdotally, just out on the beach, people are like, you can't tell that 2 hurricanes came through here. It looks great.
Yeah, I really only saw minor stuff, like a sign here. It almost looks like people left it on purpose.
Somebody pushed over a sign, and it was just
Yeah, it's like that sign's got a hole in it from the hurricane. Okay, you could have fixed it. You didn't. That
right.
kind of stuff, or maybe a dock here or there that looks like it was ripped up. But
there's certain areas that still need a little more time to fully recover. That's the more southern portion of the destination where the water really did the most damage. They still need a little bit more time, but I mean, by and by, we were back to, I think it was like a month later, we were at 80% of all the hotels were back open and ready to roll. So they've done a good job at that.
What are the chances that 2 hurricanes would hit after not having 100 years of that? Seems bizarre.
Yeah, but even like Helene didn't hit us. Like Helene was, I think it was 150 miles off of shore, but the storm surge was so drastic with that. Very powerful winds. That's what drove the water up. But yeah, no, that's a very small chance.
So you probably did some crisis management in your other types of PR in baseball or government. But for tourism, I'm always interested in this. I've lived through a couple of these. For example, I have a strong connection to Hawaii when Lahaina burnt down, when storms come through, Puerto Rico, the hurricane a few years ago. In tourism, you get into this really sticky situation where you want to be compassionate towards the locals, especially if you have deaths, home destruction. You want people to have the time to heal and to process that. At the same time, when you have an economy that's based on tourism, you need people to come back. So you get into this really tough area where how much time is enough for people before you start promoting for people to come back, and certain destinations are more sensitive to it than others. Hawaii being at the top of the list, very sensitive to, we still have people rebuilding here. Why the hell are you having tourists come back, etc.? How was that experience for you?
Super interesting. I do think we were fortunate in a sense that I would not put what we went through in the same category as what just happened in LA or what happened in Maui or even what happened in Fort Myers a few years ago. That was on a different level of devastation and destruction. So I would start there and say, first and foremost, we never hit that level, but we internally have the conversations right away. Okay, what is our next move here? What do we need to do? And it is exactly what you said. It's putting feelers out and saying, okay, where's everybody at? So we did that. We called. I mean, if we didn't call every hotel, we must have called 90% of the hotels to say, hey, what's going on? Where are you at? What's happening? Can we help with anything? And judging to see where people were at in their recovery. And then at that point, then you have to make the judgment call. Okay, what is our next move here, and how are we positioning our community? So we ultimately landed on the phrase "still shining." We wanted people to know that the sun is rising every day. We have gorgeous sunsets every day. It's still shining on this destination, and we're ready. We're eager to have people back, and we're very fortunate. Again, the leadership and the elected officials in this community understand that 1 out of 10 jobs in this county are tourism-related jobs, and we are the largest economic driver in this area. That's important to get people back on their feet, is to get people through their doors. We started putting advertising back out. I want to say it was like a month later.
So let's talk about this new phase of St. Pete, because to me, walking around, it seems like someone let a secret out somewhere where a lot of what you were talking about has been local development, but it seems like there's been a lot of outside investment too. Just on this main drag central, I saw maybe 4, 5, 6 new apartment complexes on their way up currently, others that look brand new, and it looks gorgeous. So what happened, and when did this start to happen where St. Pete now all of a sudden became a desirable place? Talking to some locals, I don't know if this is true, but they say that people are starting to move here from destinations like Miami, where it's relatively cheaper to live here in comparison. Is that true? What happened here where people are now, this influx is coming here?
It's a great question. I'm sure at some point in the very near future, somebody will try to go back and find that tipping point. But I think it's just like the culture of what's happening here. It's been growing, and like I said, when you take an effort to say, okay, we are only going to have local shops down this stretch.
Is that an ordinance preventing
I don't know
McDonald's from coming?
I don't know if it's an ordinance or not. I'm not certain what the exact.
Well, there must be some strong community feeling about it. Otherwise, it would have happened.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and the chamber has a lot of pride in that. But when you have that and you say, okay, well now I'm patronizing, so and so's restaurant, who I know because I went to high school with him, or I know because we used to hang out on the weekends and play golf. Like I don't know, it gives you a different feel and gives you a different sense of community. And there's various things that exist. We have the St. Pete Shuffleboard Club is down on Mirror Lake, down near the water. It's the America's oldest and largest shuffleboard club.
Is that table shuffleboard or the ground one with the pole?
Ground shuffleboard.
Love
with the pole.
that.
Yeah.
That's so old school.
Every Friday night is open shuffle. I think it's $5. You can bring a cooler with you. They've got food trucks, and it's, I think, 40-something courts. It's packed, and people are waiting, and there's music playing, and it's every age that you could possibly imagine are out playing shuffleboard. Like when you have a community that can come together like that, and just that one area, that eventually spreads. And when you have a place like the St. Pete Pier that is a congregation area where people can just go and hang out, and they activate it with music, and I think there's pickleball out there now. They had putt-putt last year. There is a true sense of community, and it exists right outside of this. You have this very urban area, and the actual local community it's 2 or 3 blocks away. You're into homes, and then now people have gotten a little wiser, like you said, and developed up here, down Central and the corresponding streets right outside of it. That now you're bringing that more and more people to that community. You got to have businesses to support that. So it's that cyclical action of chicken and the egg.
So you told me the other night that the Moxie brings something to St. Pete that was not here before, and I'm wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, I think just the vibe, like you described it. Like, it might not be for everybody, but it's definitely for somebody, and they stay pretty busy here.
They do. It's
pretty packed on a regular basis. We're entering spring season right now, and I bet it's going to be tough to find a room here for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I thought I didn't know what to expect, because originally I was supposed to come check this out in November.
Right.
But then the hurricane, so they pushed it, and I was like, okay, the hotel just opened, tough to open during a hurricane. Now, who knows what it's going to be like. And when I arrived Friday night, I didn't get in till late. I got to this hotel at 11:30 p.m.
It was bumping.
Packed.
I'm
trying to check in. I'm like pushing through people because the lobby bar is sort of, this is a boutique hotel, so there's not like a traditional front desk. It's more of just a little booth. But most of the lobby is just a social space.
Yeah.
I'm with my backpack trying to squeeze my way through.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's indoor, outdoor. So you got the garage doors, so you can, as a non-hotel guest, I can just roll up and have a drink at the Moxie and enjoy the vibe.
Without even coming inside.
That
is cool.
Right?
I noticed a couple places around here have that inside-outside bar.
And it catches your attention as you're walking down the street, because like I said, the garage doors are open. There's some good tunes going. You see the activity and you see the people inside. And you're like, is that somewhere I want to go hang out? And for some people, that answer is yes. And for some people, that's no. But that certain vibe that exists in the aesthetic, that has not had a place along here. So it offers, it just expands the menu listing of what you can do when you're here.
I'm sure they exist, but I haven't seen any other club scene around here. I guess traditionally it was more your beach bar, quiet hangouts.
Yeah, I mean, we can go find some if you want.
I'm good, but I haven't seen.
There's a couple. No, there's actually a couple cool ones. There's Goodnight John Boy is downtown, and that's a 70s theme. And then they also own one that's called My Rich Uncle, which is 80s theme, more clubby, very clubby.
Oh,
but you can get it. You can get it.
Where you hang out?
I do not find myself there very often. but again, it's just that. What are you looking to do? I guarantee you, I can give you a night that fits your build.
So looking at the map, and again, it was just such a short trip, but it seems like the beach area here is actually a barrier island that's disconnected from downtown. But I saw several bus stations here right outside this downtown area where I could jump on the bus, take it to the beach, and come back to town. But I'm guessing if you stay on the beach, that's more where your spacious resorts are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are several. I think that we're still evolving as to who we are. Those resorts are becoming more common now. They had not been in the past. But, it's 35 miles of beaches up and down.
35 miles?
35 miles, yeah. And it goes from Fort DeSoto all the way south, which is a state park. I'm sorry, county park, all the way up north, up to Tarpon Springs area. That's who we are. At the essence, we are beaches, right? But you have this then urban center, like you say, that's here, that's 10, 15, 20 minutes away at most. It's connected. There's bus stations that will take you from downtown St. Pete out to the beach. You don't need your car. You want to Uber from the airport to get to here, you don't need your car because you can get out to the beaches and go hang out on the beach all day and then take the bus back. Or if you want to stay the night on the beach and then come back in, you can do that too.
Yeah, I haven't rented a car here. I jumped on a bike yesterday. I went on the Pinellas Trail. You guys have this awesome bike path right through the middle. I took it out to Gulfport. That was so cool.
Yeah, it's a gem. So the Pinellas Trail, it's a 75-mile loop around the entire county. Depending on how ambitious a biker you are and what you want to get into and where you start, there's a lot of great pit stops along the way too. I don't know if you passed. There's a couple breweries. There's also
this is Brewery Central, mate.
St. Pete Distillery.
I'm from Colorado, and I was like, damn, there's so many breweries here.
Yeah, 40 plus breweries here. Yeah, the St. Pete Distillery is on there too. So you can get a nice, if you want to get a nice little selection.
That's my kind of biking
booze.
day.
Yeah.
Bike a little bit, stop a little bit.
Yeah, nice little stops, and then you make it down to Gulfport, and then you're like in this whole little nook area.
What is that? Is that considered St. Pete? Gulfport?
No, it's its own city. Yeah,
okay. It seems so artistic and very old Florida.
Yeah, it is. That's their jam, man. That's why I say you got 24 of those that exist all around the county. You go all the way north. If you take the Pinellas Trail, you would have stayed on it. You go all the way north. You get all the way to Dunedin, which is in the north part of the county. Scottish heritage. So it was founded by two Scotsmen. They lean in heavy. If you're in school and you're doing band, you can do piping. You learn how to pipe. They have Highland games each April where they do like legit Highland games, just like they do over in Scotland.
Really?
Yeah.
What's a Highland game?
They use their own terms, but caber throwing, which is like a light pole where you throw. They've got a hammer throw.
Throw a light pole?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's wild. I'll show you some pictures when you're done. Have everybody look it up. Dunedin Highland Games. Everybody look it up. It happens each April. It's 2 days. It's a weekend. It's 2 days. They do piping championships there. The Dunedin piping team competed in the World Piping Championships this year. In the highest grade. They have different grades. They were in the highest level. Only American team to compete. So that's cool, and it's deep in the heritage. It's Florida's first microbrewery is the Dunedin Brewery, which still operates today.
In the whole state?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Is it good?
It's very good, yeah. And they have good live music up there, too.
Okay.
And then you keep going north of that, you get to Tarpon Springs, which is a big Greek community. So it's sponge diving is the business of origin up there. The Greek community came to do that many years ago.
What is that?
It's like the loofah sponge, like the old school...
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
A sea sponge.
Yeah, so a sea sponge, yes. So it was cultivated up there, and that was the business, and they leaned into it, and it's a very, as you go through it's blue and whites. It looks like a Greek village on the Anclo River up there.
That's Tarpon Springs?
Tarpon Springs, yeah. It's the largest concentration of Greek Americans in one city in America.
I had no idea about that.
See,
that's cool.
These are little treasures that exist all over. You see, you're relegated yourself to St. Pete on this trip. Next time, we got to get you out and about.
Or do they still dive for the sponges now?
They don't. No,
there was
something happened. There was some. I don't want to
artificial loofahs came out.
yeah. Dove took over. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
There you go.
No, I'm not sure what happened to the species that was up there. But they lean into still the history, and you can take boat tours out to learn more.
Speaking of these other countries, I learned this weekend too that St. Pete here, St. Petersburg being the full name, is actually named after St. Petersburg in Russia.
Well, I don't know if there's solid history on that. Yeah, I there's you go back in the history books, things get
Well, history is history. But what I was reading was that there were two guys essentially down here establishing a terminus for the railroad, and they were fishing down here, transporting stuff out, and as the story goes, and this is who knows, but that they flipped a coin about who was going to name what, and the guy that won the chance to name this area spent half his life in Russia, so named it St. Petersburg. And the other guy got to name the first hotel, so he named it the Detroit Hotel after where he grew up. And I guess now the Detroit Hotel is a condo building or something, I was reading.
There was a liquor store there. I'm not sure what's there now. It's a good question. I'll have to look that up.
But yeah, so...
No.
But
it's a story.
I had no idea St. Peter, because you always think of Florida, the Spanish.
Right.
So Russian influence is totally random.
Yeah.
But that's...
I wouldn't call it Russian. I think we need to... Let's back that up a little. I'm not sure if it's Russian influence per se.
I think I read that on the Tourism Board website.
No, I'm saying I don't think there's an influence per se. I just think there was a preference, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. But I would never have expected that.
No. But we are also, just fun facts, I'm going to throw this in, we are the birthplace of commercial flight. The first plane ticket was sold in St. Petersburg. Tony Janis flew the mayor across the bay to Tampa.
The first plane ticket ever was sold here?
In St. Petersburg, yeah.
Is that made-up history, or is that real?
That's real. I also tell you that the first tourism PR person was St. Pete. John Lodwick was hired from Cleveland. He came down from Cleveland, and he convinced them to hire him to be their PR person for the city.
First ever in the country?
Yeah, this is hearsay and circumstantial, but that's supposedly that is true. Yeah.
Was this area mostly fishing, or was there any citrus?
Citrus, big time. Dunedin, where we talked about earlier. I don't want to butcher this. They've got a great little history museum up there, but they sent a lot of citrus over for the war, over to U.S. troops. They actually packaged up and shipped out a lot of the citrus to get overseas.
Another thing I did this weekend was go to
Weedon.
Yeah,
Weedon Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went to Weedon Islands.
Very good. All right.
And took a kayak through the mangroves there. Super close to nature. It's cool how quickly you can get back out. I'd been through a mangrove forest before, but I did something I had never done. Did you know that you can eat mangrove leaves?
I did not know that.
I didn't know it either.
Okay.
At first, I thought it was a prank the guide was pulling on me, because she said, "Hey, you should try one." But then I did, and it's kind of like, I think it's going to be the new kale. I got a new business idea. It's going to be like,
I think it's a protected species, though. I don't know if you could get too much into that.
Who knows? Regulations in Florida, do they exist? Come on.
It's a pretty area. It's a beautiful area.
Gorgeous area.
Yeah.
And she was talking a bit about the native history there, and I was curious if you knew anything about that. She discovered a time in history when it was sort of the Wild West over here. And she said that there was kind of like a mob scene here. And when they were establishing a lot of the natural areas over there, they found, like in different canals, a lot of burials and bodies and stuff. And she said how before the mob moved to Miami, that this was a hotbed Wild West area of kind of that old Florida feel. Do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure what we're doing for the tourism industry by digging up bodies in the bay, but
we're creating intrigue.
Okay,
intrigue. Right. No, the bodies are gone.
It's the Tampa side, that's very much so prevalent. I have not heard that on this side, so that's news. But the Tampa side has a very historic Ybor City. Ben Affleck did a movie about it. Into the Night, something the night.
It was about Tampa?
About Tampa and the mob scene that had infiltrated into there for a little while, running down to Cuba. Yeah.
Running drugs or oranges?
Prohibition.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, prohibition. So there was a lot of activity that existed in the area. I think on our side it's more so Native American history that exists up and down. Specifically on the bay side, when you go up to Safety Harbor, there's Indian burial grounds that are there that supposedly are our protectors. Actually, going back to your hurricane comment, that's why we haven't gotten hit, because they say that there's spiritual efforts at work that have kept that from happening.
I know a lot of people try and experience native cultures when they travel now. There's a number of ways to do it. My way is via the outdoors because that's my interest, and I always just think of how these native populations, what the area was like when they were here, not only what they left, like the shell mounds and stuff, but how they would have survived and the techniques they would have used.
In this environment, yeah. Especially in the summer.
But when you're going through all these mangrove forests, I'm assuming they didn't eat the leaves because they're a little salty. And by the way, if you ever kayak through a mangrove forest, just try one. It's kind of interesting to taste. But all the seafood, obviously, but they have all the oysters.
Yes.
That they were eating to make the shell mounds.
Right.
And I think that's just so cool in Florida, how you can see those remnants and just really see the way that they used to live.
Yeah.
And think about the way that they once survived down here. I know in more southern Florida, they have all the Seminole culture and the chickees that you can camp on the canoe trails and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then there's some great history tours that exist. Even downtown St. Pete the History Museum does a tour that you can take and gives you a good insight into that. Boca Ciega Park also has a nice tour that gives you that, helps you reflect on that history and understand it a little more.
The Dolly Museum is very rare to have in a community like this. Mm-hmm. My understanding was that there were some private collectors that had all these Dolly works and then decided to open it here.
Yeah, I think it's more than 2,000 pieces that they actually own.
It's so bizarre. It ended up here. You would think it'd be in New York City.
Well, it's a gem, and it's at some point it was voted. I should know this. It was voted like the most beautiful museum building in America, and it is. It looks like a Dali painting, and they're going to expand. They actually they're going to start expanding this summer. They're going to add another 30,000 square feet of museum, and it's just super cool. And they've got a dome outside where it's got video, and you can learn about Dali's life through this visual medium. So if you have kids, sometimes it helps keep their attention a little bit. It's about, I think it's a 25, 30-minute video that you go through, and it helps you really understand when you walk in what his personal life was and where he grew up that created these influences. And then inside there's like a VR thing that you can do. There's an AI phone. He's famous for a lobster phone. They've recreated his lobster phone, and you can ask Dali a question into the phone, and he answers you in Dali's voice.
I've never heard of the lobster phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's famous for that?
Oh, I don't know about he's famous for it, but there is a famous lobster phone that exists.
I thought that was a work
in his in his collection. So yeah.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up with a final question because I gotta. What time is it? Yeah, I gotta. Okay, catch a flight soon. This is a great time to come down because of spring training.
Yes.
You have 4, 5, 6 teams all in this area. A lot of the areas you mentioned, Toronto, Blue Jays, and Dunedin. You have the Yankees in Tampa. Clearwater, you have the Phillies. I think just south of here are the Pirates.
Pirates, yeah.
The
and
Rays
then further sound is and Sarasota is the Orioles. Lakeland out east is the Tigers. So it's a good home base here.
Is this one of the best times of year to come weather-wise? Everyone thinks summer in Florida, it's so hot. You guys aren't as far south as Miami. So what do you recommend for a first-time visitor when to come down?
Yeah, it's a pretty good – listen, it actually is pretty good year-round. It does get hot in the summer, but we're on the coast, so we usually get a nice little breeze, and it is a little bit cooler. You get a break with the water. If you want to come and be like in the middle of the action, you can come now. This is our busy season right now, starting about mid-February through about mid-May. That's the busiest time. And then once school gets out in June, July, then we pick up again. I always advocate for folks coming in the fall. I think that's a great time to come. I don't know what your Thanksgiving plans are, but squeezing something in either right before Thanksgiving or maybe between Thanksgiving and the holiday season, that's a good time to come because the weather has shifted. It's comparable weather then as it is now, and it's you get a lot better deals on stuff at that time of year. So between flights and hotels.
You'd think holidays would be more expensive.
No, because you hit that little pocket that it's not as high demand. So you can usually find some pretty good deals then.
I'm finding that the holidays are a great time to go on vacation now. It used to be that, I can't wait to get off work and relax during the holidays. And now the vibe I get from everybody is that the holidays are just sort of a tiring, soul-sucking obligation sometimes, with everything we have to do.
Yeah, you're able to get away. Yeah,
so I think coming down early December or something would be cool.
Yeah, I think and again, the weather's nice and the water hasn't quite turned yet either. If you come right before Thanksgiving, the water gets a little chilly as you get deeper into winter. So if you come in November, you can still jump in the in the Gulf and have fun out there.
Wait, do you swim during this time of year, or is it a local thing where it's too cold?
No, you know that the people that are in the Gulf right now, those are not locals.
Those are tourists.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go windsurfing or anything when I was on the trip. Jason, thanks for taking some time to tell us about St. Pete. We could be the first people ever to record in this Moxie podcast
We'll
studio.
say that we are.
Who knows? Yeah. Thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it, Will.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, you may enjoy the previous episode, Small Ski Areas Selling Out to Big Corporations, and the Future of Skiing with Scott Grasser. You are definitely not going to want to miss our next episode where I sit down with Tim Wenger, travel writer from the Matador Network, and we discuss a huge array of topics, current events in the travel industry, including the recent string of plane crashes, the media making people feel bad for traveling, and stories from our travels in Mexico, where I recently had to bribe a cop after getting pulled over. Until then, you can find me online at Wake and Wander Will. See you next week.
Yes, now I'm riding the terrain, flying high up once again. Got my crew sitting healthy and my boo living wealthy. Level 99, never settle in my mind. So I pedal and I climb up the pedestal and find almighty weapon. So I calm lightly step into the castle. Satchel, tackled, wrestled down the corridor where I'm grounded through the floor. Roundhouse into my core, down, out, and through the door. Sword down at my side, I gotta round up and ride. Face boss, break jaws till I take off. Face off, stop and swing my serious strike. This is it, take the title, disappear in the night. To the whole wide world. Got the keys to the kingdom overseas with the wisdom guarantee that my rhythm hit the whole wide world. Slay the boss in the castle when we cross final battle. Then I walk out and travel to the whole wide world. Got the keys to the kingdom overseas